Shift Happens Podcast.
Welcome to Shift Happens Podcast. In today's episode, we're thrilled to have with us Stephanie Hung, an accomplished technologist and business leader with decades of experience in the public and private sectors. We'll chat about the key pillars for modernizing the digital workplace and why a people-first approach is so critical for success. Let's get to it.
Shift Happens Podcast. Shift Happens Podcast.
So, Stephanie, you have a wide array of experience through different organizations, from private to public sector, and we are seeing a lot of changes and evolution in the digital workplace. So, for our conversation today, we really want to zoom in on the pillars of modernizing the digital workplace. And to set the stage, why don't you share a brief history of your background and your current role today at the Asian Development Bank?
Thanks, Doug. I have been in the technology sector for the last 30 over years. And with my early days with IBM, Hewlett Packard, Microsoft, ST Engineering, which serve different industry sector, from A to Z, airline, airport to finance and banking to manufacturing and, distributions and travel industry. So from my perspective, my role in Asia Development Bank is a very exciting time for me as a technologist, at the same time a business leader, because we believe that digital technology will create a large impact. And for what we have seen in COVID, it is the compelling trigger to drive many organizations to adopt, cloud computing, mobile application, and that is the only reason why many organizations can survive and thrive in the pandemic, because they actually went to digital. So for me, in current role as Asia Development Bank, we are actually helping a lot of the developing country to actually drive social and economic development. And for that, I see a great opportunity for us to leveraging on cloud computing, mobile computing, to leapfrog many of those poor and smaller state of a developing country. So this is actually a very good time for us to actually accelerate, the scale, the scope, and the speed in these, transformations.
That's fantastic, Stephanie. It's very interesting to see when you think about the impact technology can have on emerging markets. We often talk a lot about relationships between enabling technologies and also mobilizing cultures or individuals for change. Maybe in your experience or in your view, would you mind talking to us a little bit about how you see change first affecting culture as individuals think about driving and moving forward through a digital initiative or an entire digital transformation project?
It is all about changing the mindset. We talk a lot on, changes. It requires individual to first be aware, what are the trends and what are the things that happening around us. Second, it is really to internally accept that these changes is inevitable. And we all thrive in, so-called the embracing change. So we have to accept that change is happening. And then once you have the internalizations, then you will want to learn about how you can actually accelerate this change. So it is really about mindset change. And with the mindset change, you can actually change the culture.
Yes, I like that a lot. Awareness, acceptance, and acceleration. Typically the ability for an organization to adopt or use a new technology or embrace a new technology, it really, things start with accepting the fact that there will be new benefits that technology may deliver. As you think, or as we think about the pillars of modernization or culture, it would probably be interesting for our listeners to understand how you think about the organization going through that acceleration, while at the same time maintaining agility. And it would be great if you can expand on how agility could also be harnessed.
We need to perform A-N-D, the power of N. Meaning is that we have to perform our day-to-day operations, keep the lights on, At the same time, we need to transform. And transform meaning is that learning about new technology, learning about new capabilities, and at the same time, transform the organizations in an agile manner. So we did embrace, what we call the agile approach, meaning is that we can start with a smaller, sprint, and then we can iterate multiple times and learn from each of the sprint what works, what doesn't work, and then from there we can then actually scale it up into multiple sprint.
This is really fascinating, Stephanie, considering that you work with a lot of different types of organization in different emerging markets. So with this somewhat standardized approach, are the different constituents you work with are along the same lines, or the maturity is a little different? And if they're different, how do you still ensure that people are working together effectively, especially with digital technologies?
I think you really have to look at the context. Context makes a lot of the difference. The environment that each of the organization or each of the country they operate are very different. Some they may even struggling with connectivity. And when we talk about new technology, if you have not even enabled the connectivity, they can't even have access, to the internet or access to the technology. So we have to really looking at the context where they are, what would they need. If it is connectivity, then we have to figure out how do we actually provide connectivity even at the most remote island or remote, mountain area. Perhaps, satellite is actually one of the solutions that we are looking at. So once you provide the connectivity, then the next thing is how do you make it affordable for the access of the technologies. So affordability and access to technology will actually improve quite significantly from my perspective of bridging the digital divide. Once you have that, I think the magic will happen because if you are talking about remote learning, we have worked with some of the NGO. They actually provide bite-sized learning to the most remote villages that you can find in Indonesia, right? So that is possible when you actually solve the connectivity problem, affordability and accessibility problem. So then when you're looking at some of the more developed stage, then I think the digital infrastructure become the crucial aspect of some of the transformation, especially for the economy to take off. So we have seen that, through COVID, digital infrastructures such as, identification, even, you can pay, some of your relative in some of the developing country. So I think that is important for economy to anchor on some of these digital public infrastructure where you can enable e-payment and e-commerce transactions.
So let's say once this connectivity is there, the infrastructure is there, do you still see a gap in learning, or it doesn't exist? So for example, so let's say we have a developing emerging market in Southeast Asia compared to other parts of Asia Pacific like Singapore. Do you see the adoption of the cloud, especially with work technologies like Workplace or Microsoft 365? The gap is the divide is not as huge.
Well, that one I will have to say that if you give any young people, the youth, any new tools, they will master it. Whether you are in the developing country or developed country, the young people they just have this, interest, to learn about new tools as long as it get them excited, right? I think the hardest is actually more of the silver age because many of them, they will say that, oh, I'm too old to learn. They may not want to learn about the new capability. So I think that is something that we need to figure out how to actually get everybody, no one left behind, to actually adopt this digital capability.
And this goes back to your point around the mindset, right? So it's clear that no matter if you provide the tools and the technology, but in the end, it comes to people and the mindset.
Yes, correct.
One thing I also wanted to have you expand on is I've heard you often talk about this idea of connect, communicate, and co create when it comes to making that change happen. Would you share with us, or in your view, how you think about these three components as important for these transformation initiatives?
Yeah, I think in the modern workplace, oftentimes, we thrive on, good communications skill set. At the same time, with this new age, I think co-creations matter. As we learn that many times, other colleagues have a different kind of idea. How do you actually put them together to actually create a new solution? To me, that is really about connecting the dots. So that they can actually appreciate a different perspective of, the problem, and then they can then co-create for a solution. So in the digital space or digital age, communications, connecting the dots and co-creating are actually very important.
Right. Yeah. Are you seeing a lot more openness for different vendors to work together to do more co creation in order to achieve that type of synergy and success?
Oh, yeah. All these ecosystem partner as my force multiplier.
Yeah. Force multiplier for sure.
So we ourselves, have limited resources. We have, limited bandwidth as an individual or as a organization. When we can then partner in the ecosystem and have common purpose, what we wanted to achieve, you suddenly have a force multiplier with the partner organization and partner resources. So I oftentimes is that we need to build the communities of, and plan, then we can actually become the force multiplier.
Stephanie, when you think about your experiences at Microsoft or at IBM and Hewlett Packard, have some of those strategies been able to translate over into the work you're doing today? Or do you find that because you're perhaps looking for more partnerships to contribute to the resources and to the resource pool, that it's a bit different?
I believe, all my past experience had helped me shape a lot on, the approaches to what I call the human-centric, experience. Whether you are talking to your clients and partner, at the end of the day, I think you have to put their interests at heart, and then from there you build the trust. With that kind of trust, you will be able to actually do a lot of marvelous things together. So very important is that number one is really put clients, at first, and understanding from their perspective, what they actually want to achieve, that we can actually, achieve. And with the alignment, then you can actually building the experience, and with that experience, you have the trust.
Yeah, with this human centric approach, right? This has been an age old, I would say, struggle, frankly, for some organizations where the typical scenario would be, oh, IT's rolling out a new technology, and then it's my way or the highway, and then there's no adoption. Employees not liking it because you give me another tool again. I'm so busy. What advice would you offer in your vast experience to have that human centric approach where the key stakeholders, be it the leaders, IT, really the employees in general, be able to harness and maximize the technology that's there from a lens of making sure that we're meeting people where they are?
Yeah, I think if you look back, we have been actually talking about user experience from the moment, the GUI started, right? It actually provided a very nice graphic user interface that actually people like to use it, instead of, the text and green terminal, right, that you used to have on the mainframe. And with that, I think we all harness the skill set in terms of how we design the user experience so that it is intuitively for them to use the tools. So, that quite a lot of the project that I have done is really what we call the design by the user for the user. And the interesting is that when the tool, make it available, the user will actually came to me and say that, hey, look, I know how to use this button and that button and that button because I design it. So I know how to use it. I don't think I need that kind of, 2 weeks training. I think I can use it and play with it.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So it looks like we talked a little bit about innovation talent and how that talent really starts to develop and learn through the mindset. What about leadership? What role do you think leadership plays in driving forward these initiatives and ensuring that the transformation is occurring?
Leadership is very important because they are the champion of diversity and inclusion. Meaning is that a leader need to be courageous enough to learn that each of the team member are different and they contribute differently and they will have a different opinion from you. So therefore, as a leader, how do we actually champion, the inclusion in the aspect of it to able encourage to have all the people to say, their perspective, and then you can help them to actually come to agreement on what to move forward as a team. So I think that is the first thing. Second thing, I think leader is also required to be a role model. If you wanted to actually help the team to change their mindset to be more of a continuous learner, then as a leader, you also need to actually demonstrate that you are also picking up new skill set, every year, and you encourage your staff to be able to do so, right? So that is a second piece on being a role model for continuous learning. And then the last one, I think this is actually to me very important is you have to actually become the trust force multiplier. You actually help the team to also build trust with other, stakeholder, so that we actually collectively we have a common confidence and trust in each other that we can deliver. So I think that is a three quality of a leader that you need to be able to exhibit.
So, Stephanie, I'm just curious, what's the most recent thing you've learned as a leader?
Oh wow, it's AI ethics and governance. I completed the NUS on 5 module on AI ethics and governance, body of knowledge, data processing, and all this other stuff last year. And what it actually helped me position well in the sense is that we anticipate that the emerging of AI would be very important. At the same time, as a technologist, we know, that even when we're doing data collection, there might be biases. Whatever biases that you collected from the data, potentially it can become biases machine learning algorithm, and therefore whatever recommendation could be biases. So from the very start we already say that, okay, how do we actually establish a set of a principle where we can actually make sure that our AI or machine learning algorithm is designed for fairness and inclusiveness. How do we actually enable that it is, privacies are protected and security are enforced? How can we make sure that it is safe and reliable to use? And how do we make sure that there is accountability and transparency? And then the last one, it is really about how do we ensure that the recommendation is happening on the GPT, 4.0. Now, I can really fully use all the knowledge that I have, learned last year to then apply to what is happening at work. So, yeah, I think that is one of the biggest return that I have invested myself.
That's good. Well, listen, as you said before, right? You have to lead by example, and pushing you through this journey of learning and continuing to expand and see how many have spoken about the consequences of not having the guidelines in place. And of course, there's the other side, which is the desire to monetize these capabilities. And so I guess as you think about it in your own capacity, how do you maintain balance between those two? On the one side, there's opportunity to perhaps monetize it or improve, while the consequence of regulation not being ready with the right standards or privacy protection and all of the other capabilities required to make sure it's ethical or ethically employed. Well, how do you think about that?
Very well said, Mario. You frame it quite well in the sense is that AI is tools. At the same time, I think for us as a technologist, I always looking at the positive. Especially for me, I'm optimist, so I always believe that when you have the tools, you can actually make best use of the tools. So that is on one hand. On the other hand, we also know that it can be weaponized. So the deep fake, those fake news. With some of these generative AI, it may actually promote even more social media's misinformation and disinformation, and we have seen that this actually can polarize the society. So from a technology perspective, we definitely want to have coalitions and regulations to safeguard some of these, misinformation and disinformation. And therefore, I think there are some work that is ongoing. For example, how do we actually provide or the media's provenance to make sure that this image with some label to say that this is created by AI, or this is actually original source. So in fact, if you are a photographer, fan, liker, now they actually make sure that all their their image is, authenticated, is generated by Leica camera, right? So you know that this is original photo. So I think there's a lot of things that, on that aspect of it, we need to really safeguard the public from misinformation and disinformation. So the media provenance is very important. We need to be able to authenticate, and this is from the references to the origin source of the media, whether they have a track record of being author. So I think that is one aspect of it. Then the next aspect of it, we also know that the cyber threat actor, they are actually becoming more savvy in using the AI to actually create more malware and ransomware and all the different kind of attack techniques. So in that aspect, I think we need to safeguard from the weaponize of AI. So on both end, I think we then have to look at there would be some requirement from the government aspect of it to provide some regulations on the protections of the public, right? Second, I think it is very important as all of us as professionals in the technology sector, we need to adhere to the set of principle, and we actually help each other and building the coalitions and communities, to do the collective, work together. And then that is why the last part, I think, in terms of AI, yes, I think there are worried that the tech giant would be the beneficiary of some of these AI. And then third, it is really building up the communities of AI practitioner, so that we can actually help each other to make sure that whatever we build are reliable, are safe, and there is a way to actually hold accountabilities in that aspect of it.
Stephanie, you shared a lot of great tidbits of knowledge and wisdom to our listeners, and we can keep going. But in the interest of time and being respectful of your time, we typically wrap up each of our podcasts with a very clear takeaway on how to deal with all these shifts that's happening, especially around the digital workplace transformation. There's so much changes. So, what advice would you offer that's very practical and tactical for some that would help organization to make the shift happen in their digital workplace?
Yeah, so digital shift will first require a mindset shift. This will mean that we have to relook at key element of workplace. We understand that there are soft skills that we need to continue to enhance: communication, collaboration, co-creation, and continuous learning. In the digital age, we are human beings still, and spontaneous social gathering to actually build up the rapport and trust among us. With that trust, in the digital age, we could actually excel in many of the things that we can do in the modern digital workplace.
We really appreciate your insights and openness in discussing these important topics, Stephanie. Your thoughts will be valued to many as we look for the recipe to build a strong foundation for workplace transformation. We're fortunate to be living through these times as practitioners, professionals, and recipients of all this great technology innovation. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to having you back on a future episode to discuss the good that is coming from the work you're doing.
Shift Happens Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Digital workplace transformation is evolving rapidly, but it's the people who make it work. In today's episode, Stephanie shared her perspective on why a human-centric approach to digital transformation is key. From mindset shifts and communication to the power of connection and co-creation, this will be more important than ever as we navigate the role AI will play in the digital workplace. At the end of the day, remember, people comes first. If you like today's episode, subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next time.
Shift Happens Podcast. Shift Happens Podcast.